You didn't hear my presentation yet.
We're going live.
Good.
All right.
And give me 1 second, I just have to. Okay.
I feel like now that we have the live streaming little thing in the corner, it's like
Yeah.
a mothership. So I have no idea where we're being beamed to, but
Being
feels very
beamed
grand.
all over. Direct into the main vein of the metaverse right here. Yeah.
Makes it sound like the holodeck.
Claire, we're gonna continue our back end bullshitting until you want to
I think
steer us
I
in,
think
but
it should be.
get a little taste of the green room experience over here, y'all.
Okay. We are live.
Indeed.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Digital Fashion Week New York. The second panel, thank you so much for your patience. We have Pavan Bal, who is going to moderate, Jessica Quillen from It's a Working Title, and Dale Parr from Metaverse Me. We're super excited to have you here. Thank you so much. I am going to join you back at 12:50. And Pavan, I'm really looking forward to seeing how you moderate this conversation and learning more about the topic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Claire. And as always, thanks for the opportunity of participating. It's an incredible program and a very important one to galvanize this conversation and really the community around digital fashion and Web3 gaming, the whole thing. We're so early and everyone recognizes that, and everyone in the audience, we recognize you for being early in participating, even if it's as lightly as listening into this webinar. So thanks everyone for participating. For myself, I'll do quick introductions on behalf of everybody, and then we'll kind of step right into it if that's all right. So for me, my name is Pavan, as Claire mentioned. I am the founder of Bellwether Culture. We stem from being, let's say pre-COVID, being a B2B community of brand leaders and thought provokers that really come together around content and experience to just kind of like see what's next and find collaborative opportunities amongst one another. But that's kind of evolved into really this kind of Web3 conversation. It's top of mind for most people in our Bellwether community. So we've gone ahead and launched a couple programs off of that, one being the Bellwether NFT. So it's nft.bellwetherculture.com. And then we also have Unrevealed, which is nrvld.co, which is essentially a live, multi-day program around Web3 and brand leaders coming together around experience, this, that, and the other thing. So beyond that, I am a community builder, and that's what I like to do. I've had a ton of conversations that I've spearheaded with my media company, Mouth Media Networks, 400 plus interviews. Now, going on to my esteemed panel here, I'll start with Jessica Quillen, who's of course a very familiar name and face, coming from the space of fashion and fashion tech and reporting on as a traditional editor in fashion, and then moving her journey through digital and content strategy. And now today she's the co-founder and principal of It's a Working Title. Essentially, she's a content strategist, a retail strategist, an author, an editor, as I mentioned, and her real beat has been bringing content strategy to Web3 and the metaverse. So Jessica, thank you for joining us. And we also have Dale Parr, who is the head of fashion over at Metaverse Me, which is a platform and a marketplace for exploring and sharing your digital self through NFT, through fashion, AR, games, dance, and music. So a majority of the interaction that you're seeing that are dominating your social threads, it's also dominating the metaverse and dominating in other aspects. But he is specifically focused as their head of fashion division specifically. So these are things as how can fashion NFTs be represented as digital assets, hyper personalized experiences within it. So of course we're here during New York Fashion Week. Can't wait to get your take on what's going on and what you're excited to explore and observe as part of that. And that's it. So I'll kick it off with this, and I'll start in alphabetical order. I'll start with Dale. Why do you think Claire invited you to be on this panel? Beyond the obvious, like your title and the companies that you're with, why do you think you're here to participate in this very specific panel, which is titled, How Do We Create Mass Adoption of Digital Assets from a Consumer Standpoint?
Yeah, I think because Claire knows what we're building at Metaverse Me. I've known Claire for probably about 6 months, I suppose. And I've hosted a podcast and Claire was a guest. So we've had some conversations in the past. We had the pleasure of meeting in real life in Milan 2 weeks ago at the Luxury Symposium, which is really cool. But yeah, we are getting to that point where there's been a hell of a lot of building. There's been ups and downs in terms of NFT activations, price speculation. But now we're getting to the point where it's time. The technology is maturing. The audiences are starting to really understand what Web3 is about. And now we start to have some tools and some services that people can really get into. And certainly with what we're doing is we're providing a platform, an ecosystem that provides gameplay and augmented reality extensions to any experiential digital asset or any digital collectible. So yeah, my focus is fashion. But if you have an object, some jewelry, a vehicle, we can take that object and it can be casted into AR. And that content can be curated, edited, and then shared socially. So this is kind of a massive unlock, really enabling people to use any of their digital collectibles. But I'm really excited about artwork, creating street murals using your NFT art, using our tools. So yeah, I think that's probably the reason Claire invited us, because we've got some great stuff coming.
Good deal. Yeah. And look, to note that your team does come out of the gaming environments. And I'd say that community of gamers this metaverse, this has been their third place, right? It's been homework and gaming environments. And that is very kind of understandable, these sorts of interactions that we're moving towards as a society. And it's really interesting. So can't wait to get your take on that. Now, switching over to Jessica, for yourself, the same question. Why do you think you were invited to be on this very specific title?
I would say, again, I think part of it is because Claire understands kind of what I'm looking to build with It's a Working Title. I think, digital adoption doesn't happen in a vacuum, my company is really looking to kind of bring sort of the art and science of content strategy to Web 2.5 to Web 3, if you will. I think brands are obviously eager to latch onto, the something new when it comes to new technologies. There've been a lot of early players in that, and a lot of people have sort of seen, the Gucci's in the news and various brands kind of jumping in. But for other brands that have either done one or two projects or none at all, they need kind of practical insights and real strategy to understand how to get from where they are now to kind of Web3 and other things. And, for us, being kind of small content strategy is one tool and sort of a wider set of things that a brand can use to scale content and really ideas across platforms. And, I think everything from content is really kind of building on those foundational stories. And, Web3 is so much about connecting those brand stories to those customer stories and kind of building new meaningful experiences in between, and making sure that everything is still about, not just getting your brand name out there, but, making a sale in the end, and sort of, what e-commerce even looks like in that landscape and kind of what consumers are really looking for from these experiences. So, part of what we do It's a Working Title is helping brands really set up a plan and also a roadmap to get from point A to point Z with all of that, with creating kind of meaningful content that's going to be mapped to, their brand story and their vision, but also to, their customers, their goals, and, kind of where they want to go with each initiative. And we always say, to kind of start small with those sort of, proofs of concept type of thing, and then, figure out kind of what to do after that. So we really try to provide that sort of, scaffolded plan to get to the next level.
Look, we've been through kind of like that Web 2, or let's say e-com transition for luxury, or let's say just consumer brand generally. And there are a lot of parallels you could draw from it, in the sense that, you found that there were, early movers like there always is, and then there were late adopters. I think luxury as a subcategory of fashion has been traditionally a little bit slower to act, maybe because the opportunity costs or the risks are inherently a little bit more dramatic to the brands now. But what I'm finding, there's some parallel there, but at the same time, to your point, when you mentioned something like Gucci, but you can name at least like 10 luxury brands off the top of your head that have participated meaningfully already, right? Mm-hmm. So it feels like the velocity of this, I guess the evolution is happening a bit faster than, let's say, Web 2. So getting from Web 1 to Web 2 or into Web 2 and e-com to now going into Web 3, to your description 2.5 to 3, I feel like it's just moving really fast. Let's say this, it's easy to talk in these groups. It feels like everyone is somewhat aligned. It's an echo chamber of sorts. What surprises me is, coming from a fashion tech community background, a lot of folks in a fashion tech community, let's say traditional fashion tech or Web 2 community, is still really like trying to grasp why this matters from a high level standpoint. And I'm getting those questions regularly. And when I do get those questions, it really knocks me down a peg and it says, okay, maybe we're not where I thought I was talking in this ecosystem or this echo chamber. So where, in your opinion, staying on Jessica, like where are we right now in terms of adoption, like true adoption?
We were joking earlier. I said, I think we're sort of somewhere between Web 2.5 and 2.75, when it comes to sort of where things are with that. And I would say, businesses right now, the question we get the most is like, what are the use cases, right? What does this mean for my business? How do I sort of apply this? And it's not just, you say luxury has been sort of among that first wave to do things. And part of that is because, yes, they want to create these exclusive experiences, but they've also got budget to kind of spend, right? And they're kind of less at risk of brand dilution, they're less at risk of losing that kind of foundational customer there. And so a lot of brands that are sort of more on, say, even the higher end of fashion, not quite luxury, but more mid-market, are asking us, how do we create sort of more meaningful touch points and not just these sort of, one-off, set up a short-term,
I think
NFT launch.
What to highlight what you just said over there is like, the most important thing that I've noticed is like, they've spent on digital. They don't need to be convinced on digital. And that was probably the biggest slug getting to Web 2 and e-com. Now they're all in. They've made significant investment during COVID into digital connectivity with their consumer and community that comes with it. They're ready for it, right? They're kind of eager to how to put these foundational pieces and this mindset, maybe this digital mindset at play.
Yeah. I would say they're ready, but not necessarily as ready as they may need to be in a sense. And that's, I think, where sort of my company comes in to sort of fill a gap that a lot of brands may not realize is there when it comes to content strategy. I mean, I think the sort of quickness with which digital adoption sort of took place created a lot of internal siloing within brands. You have a lot of kind of decision makers who are sort of spread across teams and sometimes even continents that, kind of make decisions about, digital assets across different platforms, and it creates a kind of a lack of continuity, but also a lack of consistency in brand messaging across platforms, and even kind of inconsistent user experiences there. So I think the acceleration of Web3 can put brands in a more precarious position because you see yes, you have control obviously over setting up the sort of metaverse or Web3 experience, but sort of the whole new sort of decentralized community-based model, especially for consumers who are looking for more authentic kind of personalized experiences, you have to cede control, right? And fashion brands are not good at ceding control. They want to really kind of own the room, right? And so I think there's a sense, especially moving towards models of, kind of co-creation and everything there, the brands need to evolve their own sort of mindset when it comes to product development and marketing and all of that. So I think we're still evolving a mindset, but we also need to sort of take the strategy and tools with us as well.
Dale, how is this different from coming into Web 2? What are the considerations that, and again, going back to the topic, like how do we create mass adoption? I think the fundamental reasoning here is that we need to get consumer adoption, right? So it comes from the brands, it comes from folks really creating seamless experiences that we all interact with quite naturally. So, but what does that mean in Web3 versus Web2?
Well, it's a really interesting contrast here because, like you say, Web2 and ecom, everyone was slow. I was there in 2007 myself, setting up the sneaker store. It started off as a pure play e-commerce, ended up being omni-channel.
Dale,
and everyone thought
Tiffany's. Did you like the Tiffany's lows, the dunks?
They were a bit ordinary for me, but it's a great collaboration. It's a great collaboration, but I think they could have done more. They could have done more.
Would you rather purchase the whistle? Is that what you're saying? Gotcha. Go
it's like the supreme hype, isn't it? Everyone wants the axe or the fire extinguisher, you know. Yeah, so back in 2007, you know, everyone thought I was a little bit crazy. You know, people weren't buying shoes online then. And now we're seeing that fashion doesn't want to make the same mistake. So they're actually kind of running ahead, which is exciting in a lot of ways, because they have, some of the biggest global houses do have you know, very robust balance sheets. They can afford to experiment. They're happy to be daring and creative. And that actually gives the mid-level guys an awful lot of insight. And I know we touched a little bit on Porsche just before we went live. And again, there's so much valuable learning for everybody else from the hiccups of some of the big players.
Well, to take a scale out a little bit for those that haven't been following the news around Porsche's NFT, I mean, let's say the industry, the Web3 kind of insider communities have all looked at it as a disappointing launch because for what, you know, they didn't sell out, they priced it a little bit wrong, there wasn't enough utility baked into it, whatever it is. But if you talk to folks, I'm sure within the brand, and they got a lot of play out of this, and they surely didn't need the money. So, you know, it depends on how you're looking at success also, and what you're looking to gain out of it from a brand equity standpoint as well. Did it really tarnish the Porsche brand? No, I want a Porsche. I still want one, right? So
and actually, just to add in, because I'm not sure if you caught my presentation yesterday when I was speaking, I actually cited Porsche in terms of looking at an example of sort of flat storytelling within Web3, but even, you know, sort of from that angle of, you know, it didn't really have a narrative. It didn't really have much of a point. I mean, they had a point. It was just to sell some NFTs, but it didn't have sort of a strong narrative center, and looking at sort of how you do brand storytelling within Web3 and kind of invite consumers in. It didn't do any of that, but from a sort of lesson standpoint, as we're saying, of kind of learning from how to do things, I think it shows still as a sort of an example of, you know, kind of what not to do, but also, you know, big brands can try stuff and have it not go right. And it doesn't matter whether they're sort of selling a story or selling an idea, people are still kind of buying into that sort of hype there. So I think as part of that sort of hype cycle, it's an interesting sort of piece, but I think it just, you know, kind of is exciting from the standpoint of brands just trying stuff and seeing what works and what doesn't.
Some brands that I've been talking to recently, Porsche has shaken the foundations of their Web3 plan to the point where they've been considering swapping to free mints, because they really don't want the turmoil and they don't want the publicity of not selling out.
Yeah, I guess so. But, you know, they were also able to re-engineer it a bit and take off a bunch of the mint, right? And create
the scarcity.
Yeah, that drove up the value again. So I mean, look,
but this is, you know, it does go back to strategy always, because 7,500 was always too many. And one thing, you can't always control the demand creation, or the demand creation is much harder to control and influence, but you can always control the supply side. So it should take, you know, from a strategic perspective, smaller, long-term approach is always a wise choice, because these guys, like you say, they don't need the cash.
Yeah, no, and actually, they have a bunch of people that have a connected wallet to them, right? So, I mean, there's real inherent value in that communication bridge that they have created.
I do have to question what sort of like a long-term sort of brand loyalty that does build, because the launch was not really backed with any sort of like a membership card or any sort of a loyalty program, and people kind of don't know what's going to happen next. And, you know, again, this is part of our conversation with brands in terms of building that core strategy around Web3, is like, rather than just creating a one-off experience, what do they get out of it now, and how do you bring them back for kind of repeat experiences? And maybe you say Porsche doesn't need that because people already have that brand loyalty, but when I think it comes to like buying an NFT and some of this, it's like, how do you make sure that you continue to have that build value over time and kind of continue to build meaningful experiences that consumers want to keep coming back to?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a few things to this. I mean, I think that going back to the comment of applauding for trying is important, because we're still very early, and where we used to say that quite like in a celebratory manner last year at this time, that's like, hey, brands are just being applauded for trying. If we're seeing Porsche not being applauded for trying, but it's still super early, it's very important that we recognize that it's super early and that
Sure.
they are entering the space, and that's important for the entire ecosystem to ultimately transition into mass adoption, right? Is that these important brand and these banner companies are doing things, right? So I think that side is important. Now, where I'll just look to my own experience on and see where you think things are based on that is, look, I'm in it. I listen along more than most people, I would say, generally, and just by the nature of cultivating community in this space. But I'm not a builder. I'm not a technologist. Like that's not my business. Now you can see I'm wearing the Artifact Nike hoodie. In order to get this hoodie, you have to be a clone member. You have to then purchase the twin NFT. You had to forge it, purchase the hoodie separately. Like it was a whole thing. I picked it up because it was a piece, to me, it was a piece of history, right? Following Artifact's journey into acquisition to Nike, seeing this being one of the earlier first pieces that really had that connected experience to Web3 was important for me to get my hands on it. Now, beyond that, and then I have some luggage tags. I'm a World of Women holder. We actually produced their gala alongside Unrevealed in December, and I'm very close to that team. I'm a holder of World of Women. I have some luggage tags that I put on all of my suitcases, and I'm proud holder in that regard. But beyond that, I'm not like going out there and spreading the gospel. Nobody fucking knows anything about this hoodie when I'm walking around, right? It's, or even mostly like the luggage tag also. Like the reality is, even for me, beyond these small interactions, I'm not in metaverse platforms still tinkering around as much as I probably should be, right? I'm not creating my own avatar, which is an important first step for someone to go in and actually create their next, what is that next identity of self look like, and participate in that manner. I might be aged out, but that can't be the reasoning of it, because it is folks that are in their late 30s, early 40s, 50s that are pushing these agendas forward. So if I'm already someone paying close attention and I'm not pushing these forward because for my own personal self, call it a lack of interest or maybe inspiration from the user experience, I don't know. But where are we in terms of getting someone that's already on the line reeled in?
I think it depends on kind of a couple of things. I mean, one, as I'm mother of an 11-year-old boy who plays Roblox on a daily basis. We have jumped in to play with him just to kind of find out what it is, and it's a community for him. It's where he kind of chats with his friends. He has he has his avatar, but his avatar looks nothing like him. I mean, when designing my own avatar, he was giving me advice, and his first thing when seeing what I picked for my designs, because I picked a blonde with a ponytail who was wearing a Gucci hat, and he was like, that looks like you, why do you want to look like you? His avatar is a gingerbread man, and he's like, I said, well, would you ever want to dress like that in real life? He goes no, my Roblox character is my character is there, and I want to be that person there, but I'm a different person in real life. So I think looking at people from sort of our generation is partially driven by interactions with Gen Z, I would say, and to some extent. So you have people in the gaming community for whom, as we were discussing earlier, it's sort of a more natural fit. But I think to take it back a level to look at sort of mass adoption for sort of, older generations, I think it's going to become, as it sort of becomes more a part of the fabric of, our everyday kind of digital touch points within social media. So maybe it's, in an Instagram avatar or, a TikTok videos or kind of wherever those are. And I think, making it more a part of that sort of normal e-commerce exchange. So you buy a physical good, you get a, it becomes a digital experience, right? You buy a digital good, it unlocks, that NFT, and that NFT unlocks a new kind of, I don't know, vault or a new kind of membership experience online that drives you further into the brand. I think I see touch points like that, a more logical flow for sort of older users, whereas I think for, younger users, it's more of a sinuous kind of thing. So I think a lot of the sort of more platform-based experiences that brands have been going with work a lot better. So I think, and again, from a content strategy standpoint, this is why we view everything as sort of that ecosystem, right? You need different approaches for different demographics and different types of shoppers.
Yeah, I think, look, there's a few things to unpack there. One is storytelling, first of all, is critical. I think education is critical. So those things aside, needing to be top of mind. You mentioned your approach versus your son's approach to even building a digital avatar. You could take it even further than that and say the approach of building structures and your brand within the metaverse can look ultra realistic or ultra just full, just a full explosion of creativity.
Yeah.
We have a space in Decentraland. It's a 1x1, the smallest parcel, right? We thought it was important to allow our holders to play and tinker around in Decentraland because it's really expensive and it's been kind of like the buzzy, more coveted one, although their user base needs to obviously get there. Now, in that, we made it pretty realistic, right? There's a presentation space where you could live stream conversations like this. There's a space on the second floor where you could have pop-up like an art gallery or a retail store or whatever it is. And then on the top is, your faux DJ booth, a couple screens in the back, and a hangout space, right? But when you look around, I mean, things can look like anything. So I'm wondering now.
It's the duality. It's the duality piece, isn't it? It's kind of like it feels logical to replicate, but actually, and that's because probably we're millennials, right? I think Gen Z just see it completely differently. They just see an opportunity to create and play, especially when 70% identify as content creators and spend many hours a week doing it. They just see the potential of the tooling, and they want to create something really, really unique.
But this doesn't just stop there. So your avatar could look like a digital entity, or I mean, one of the panelists that was going to be on, Sasha, I mean, her company Sensorium, they do hyper or ultra realistic avatars, right? Mm-hmm. So something that would literally probably body scan me. I could put the motion detectors on me. I could throw it into Unreal Engine 5 or 4, whatever we're on, and really create a representation of the real world in AR, VR, or your metaverse platform. So I'm kind of curious, where does this become us stop talking about it as Web3, as metaverse, and it transition into this is just how we interact with this platform called the internet?
Well, this is on a natural trajectory, right? This is, like Jessica said, Gen Z and the players of Fortnite, Roblox, and other titles are quickly becoming young adults. They understand the value of virtual goods and experience in spaces, and they're looking for the maturation of the apps and services. So this is just happening, whether we're kind of driving it forward or if we're accelerating the movement. It's just happening before our eyes.
Yeah, and to pull a quote from Claire, our esteemed startup for all this, even the term all looking at alternate reality and all of this is actually all sort of part of the same universe, right? These are not alternative realities. This is, maybe another layer on top of the reality we have now, but it's just sort of kind of another digital imaginative kind of realm for that. So, everything you guys are saying comes back to me, the idea of sort of that decentralized but interoperable kind of realms in which anyone can kind of be anywhere in that sort of choice, right? So from a self-expression and creativity standpoint, to kind of be where you want and be who you really feel you are or you want to be in, even in that moment, and then change it to the next one. And, brands and retailers need to sort of allow people to sort of match those experiences and kind of create, those sort of new imaginations from there. And look, I'm a content strategist, so I'm always going to say there are solid practices from, UX and content strategy we obviously need to remember and bring over from Web 2 into Web 3. So I sort of have the foot in the old, foot in the new kind of thing, especially for heritage brands looking to sort of keep that brand identity, that history matters. I get that, but we have to sort of stop thinking about just replicating the real world for Web3, because in Web3 we can do anything, right? It's what's so exciting to me. It's endless imagination, and it's kind of, I love that there are people like Sasha doing hyperreal. I love almost that Roblox has this sort of like retro cartoony look to it, because it's a great place for my son to be, and I feel like it's very appropriate. So I think I love that there are so many new possibilities to that, and I think it gives brands so many different options to figure out the right places for them and kind of where they think their consumers are going. That said, I feel like it's still a cacophony. And so as these things evolve, we do need those standards and best practices, and to kind of evolve the user education along with it, so that we make sure that, we don't lose people by having too many options, I guess.
Do you think it's important, do you both, and asking both of y'all, like, do you think it's important to have an interoperability between metaverse platforms? Like something like, I think Lighthouse is a solution of a few that bridges multiple platforms so that you could participate versus if you're here, then you're here, and you're here, you're there. So
yeah, completely.
So
that has to be. But there will be limitations, because every game engine has a set of requirements, and not all assets are going to. Well, it's about managing the expectations of the holder, right? So, say they have an asset that works really well in a particular gaming title, they may be able to port it to another, but they have to accept that it may look different. So, the differences between kind of Decentraland and Sandbox, for example, it's just understanding that. I think at the moment, people want everything to be perfect in every situation, but that's just going to be an educational process.
I mean, a lot of these platforms, and understandably so, will have their parameters and their guardrails around like even building around like the infrastructure. So like Decentraland, like you can't go up this high without this much, this many tiles and this many, sports. There are parameters, almost like an architect would have, limitations from their structural engineer. So that's an interesting place to watch, to see what clusters start building for maybe ultra realistic or similar sorts of architectures and design elements and things like that. It's definitely a huge question mark, and I feel like we've built so much and so far that it's hard to kind of reel back and say, okay, now this is going to be the platform, or there might be an opportunity for a new thing to come across. So I guess moving towards like taking
just on that interoperability piece, Pavan, before you move on.
Yeah, please.
Something we do in our social app is that we can, like I say, bring in objects of any type, as long as they're an FBX file, as long as they're in your wallet. That actually includes avatars. So whether you have started using RPM or whether you've started using a Decentraland avatar, you can still bring that in. Still bring that into our system, and you can still use the AR social app to create content. But then you can also take that into our esports titles and play five-a-side soccer and racing. You won't have the full extent of kind of dressing and styling, but you'll certainly have access to capturing social content and gameplay. So, there is already some moves, but like you say, this is going to be a thing where we're going to have to see what partnerships arrive, and also how kind of CRM tools start to interact with each other. Because I'm kind of going to slide slightly off the point, but one of my concerns is that everyone's going to be overwhelmed with wallets. Everyone's going to be overwhelmed with CRM, and it could get really, really messy. And it could be the modern day ocean plastic, when we have all these unwanted NFTs sat on wallets all around the world. So I think there will be a situation a bit like Connect 4, where you'll be able to start stacking and utilizing your NFTs. So there's a lot. There's
already businesses that buy your valueless or close to valueless NFTs, because you can't claim the loss until you actually sell it. So if there's no market to buy it, you're kind of stuck there with these graveyards of NFTs, to your point or your description. So yeah, this is a real thing that we are already trying to consolidate and sort out. But what I'd like to now transition the conversation to with this last 15 minutes or so is talk about the consumer touch points. This is obviously a fashion program. It's New York Fashion Week. And I, again, with my underlying thesis that until the consumer is interacting in Web3 friction, like without really knowing that we don't have to identify, oh, this is a Web3 experience or not. We're not truly going to get to mass adoption, right? So what I do like in terms of taking a little bit of a higher level stance of it is just these 3D retail environments, right? And platforms that can enable that, something that comes top of mind because I've been around the solution for so long and the founder is Obsess, right? So Obsess, I think they used to go by Obsess AR or VR, but essentially they build 3D environments. They are also, you can have your Connect wallet featured to it from what I understand and get a more immersive full brand experience when you go to a website, right? Whether it's Coach or any other retailer. So I'm curious to see what are you so from my side, I'm more excited about that end of Web3 as it relates to fashion and consumer. I'm curious to see where are you excited about in terms of, and forget about your own businesses. It's really about consumer, everyone's got their own niche, right? And market that they're focused on. But as a macro, if we're all trying to get to mass adoption, what are you most excited about that has the ability to shape consumer behavior?
Just to jump in, I'd say for me, I think the sort of, because look, I know you said to not think about our business, but I'm always thinking in terms of sort of, near term, achievable wins for brands versus longer term kind of goals from there. And I think from that standpoint, looking at something like digital twins is such an easy way to do that. So you buy a physical good, you get a digital good to go with that. And I think in terms of looking at what consumers would want to engage with, I think something as simply as existing loyalty programs, right? That you can tie an NFT to that someone gets a crypto wallet and automatically unlocks, exclusive benefits, exclusive experiences, things like that is a very sort of practical way that both for brands and consumers to kind of engage with Web3 without really knowing that it's all there. And I think it's familiar, right? Because everybody has that Target card or that Nordstrom's card or whatever that you get perks from. So I think,
and that's happening. Have you been to a program already that you could quickly download a wallet within seconds? It mints the PO app and it sends it in and. Yeah, sure. It's there. There's a company, I think if anyone wants to look into this, Cupcake.com is releasing a product called Sprinkles. There's, we were talking yesterday or 2 days ago, part of our webinar series with Lynn Toussaint, who was at Valtech before, but started consulting in Web3 interactions. And, talking about, again, Twin NFT is rewards-based community driving events ticketing. So NF ticketing being something what are those macro trends that you're seeing that you think could lead to the greatest adoption if you were to take some of those real utility-based opportunities for fashion?
Fashion's one thing. I would just like to touch on real estate. I think real estate could be a big unlock for
Dale,
millennials.
I need to steer this.
Yeah,
I agree. We
understand. We understand that Gen Z are walking into this. We don't need to touch them. Millennials need some help. Millennials will get faith.
But we're still
interacting with real estate transactions. That will unlock for them the true potential, because it will save them a lot of time. It will save them a lot of legal. So I think that could be a really, really important kind of builder of trust.
Mm-hmm. That's a good, okay. Yeah, I like that take on it, is that until those more traditionally viewed industries, although fashion is the second largest industry next to oil and energy, really kind of take shape, or let's say the institutional side. Maybe that's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah, I also think that, not to pull from Dale's gaming thing, but I think the more we sort of incorporate, look, we write a lot about the gamification of content strategy. We have a whole white paper coming out on gaming, fashion, and content strategy and all of that, but kind of employing those sort of gaming-based techniques and kind of just taking advantage of new Web3 technologies to make shopping more fun, right? The number of people I've talked to in the last few days who say shopping has not changed online in the last 25 years, and we really need to rethink what that model is and make that whole experience more interactive, more engaging, and kind of more interesting. So,
well, I want to put a caveat or a pin in that. Shopping has evolved constantly online. I think it's really interesting what's happening in social shopping, and live stream shopping is tremendous. Just even marketplace development and stuff like that. So I agree, though, it's flat, meaning it's 2D and it's not 3D, and there's a huge opportunity to transition between the two. But shopping has gotten really, really good.
No, agree. And I meant more like the sort of the I would say the engagement interactivity part of it. Social shopping is a great thing, and I think live shopping has a lot of potential for that. But it still falls within, for me, that sort of parameters of more of a traditional, almost broadcast approach to marketing, right? Where it's like a brand putting the products out there and someone buys them and it kind of goes that way, and you don't have that sort of co-creation model I was talking about earlier with that sort of shared.
That's why I just wanted to put a quick pin.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I'm not disagreeing.
I think, but I think, again, live streaming and social shopping there, I think are also sort of additional opportunities to kind of bring in, again, these loyalty programs and a lot of those other sort of touch points to kind of drive engagement as well, kind of depending on how influencer marketing itself is going to be evolving a lot, I think, as Web3 kind of continues to mature as well. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of what creators do with these new tools as well.
What would you do to convince or to argue for Web3 development and testing and ideation over somebody who is, the opportunity to switch from to continue on Web 2 in social and live stream is very real, and that's also quite new, right? So it's still on the forefront of digital. So now, if I have a decision to make between the two, is it both? Like, how are we steering now decision making inside of digital teams, where it's like, hey, we need to prioritize this, or no, we need to prioritize this object, right? So, and they're completely different, in my opinion.
Look, I think both should be part of a, kind of strong content strategy across the board. And I think there are ways to do both so that it does not, break the bank or kind of lose consumers in the process for it. I believe strongly in doing, POCs, proof of concept, for piloting, kind of smaller technologies. And there are a lot of, kind of ways for brands to test out, Web3 metaverse spaces straight off their own website with white label products and things like that, to build like small testing, do that user testing, see kind of what works, make the experience feel more on brand and less, like a Roblox or whatever, do an event or something kind of small while still keeping the social shopping going. So there are, I think, ways to kind of dip your toes in and then kind of build a strategy around that. But, for us, it has to start with, what I'll call vision-focused user research, taking your brand vision in, but like researching what your users are actually doing. What do they care about from both shopping, but also what are their habits, kind of day to day, and then trying to figure out, are our consumers even interested in Web3? Is this something that is going to kind of draw them in, or would this just draw in new people? And, trying to figure out that balance. And, I think right now it's going to be an age of kind of tailored strategy for a while until, kind of enterprise solutions become more on board. I mean, you saw Microsoft just tanked its industry AI team. So like, there's just a lot of stuff happening right now with the kind of recession and everything. So.
By the way, did you like how I even said for everybody here that's not privy to the email correspondence that we all were on, when Claire put the whole panel together, I said, you know what, like I'm a podcaster. I've done like 400 podcasts. I'm a retail strategist. I know how to have a conversation around this stuff, but let me just throw together from ChatGPT. I literally said, ChatGPT, I'm moderating a panel called this. These are the folks' backgrounds. What are some questions around where do we get mass adoption? And it literally spit it out. I copied and pasted it into email. I said, these are some questions from ChatGPT to use as a framework, but we'll just have a conversation. I think that's really important, but just a little sidebar. I thought that was hilarious and very impactful in its own.
Like
but Dale, I do want to get back to you. I want to get your opinion.
I've got something interesting about DPC. I wanted to share that.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
So here's an idea, right? Fashion brands, they have a problem with forecasting. They have a problem with overproduction. And so there could be a mechanism here where brands that have digital product creation pipelines, when those products go off to the factories, that's the end of their useful life, right? But what they could do is they could extend that into the digital world by converting those into NFT. The NFT could then act as a forecasting tool before production commences. But then that NFT also gamifies the production process. So that person, that holder, has updates during the production pipeline, getting them excited about their drop date. And then when that arrives, they end up having the digital twin as well.
It's this tie-in between supply
Smart
chain.
production.
It's transparency, supply chain, rewards based. Look, the best brand that has ever done it consistently is not the biggest brand, but it's Rebecca Minkoff as a designer in her company, her and Uri together building technology as their brand identity has been insane. And I bring it up because man, I wish I'll go back and figure out the timeline. But when I first interviewed them around when they put NFC chips in their bags, simple. And then they were, essentially, let's say rewards-based marketing for actually wearing the bag. So what they understood is that you may have, Jessica, 20, 30 bags sitting in your closet, but it doesn't help the brand if it's sitting in their closet. It helps if you wear it out to coffee or to a dinner or whatever it might be. Because that's brand recognition. It's a story that you're able to tell, this, that, and the other thing. So they said, okay, well, we can track now your usage or your participation with this product, and we can reward you for those things like coffee at your local, coffee shop and things like that. And I thought that was wild. We had Rebecca come back to Unrevealed in December during Miami Art Week, and again revisit now how we were once talking about, and I think the industry from a supply chain side got used to working with like things like RFID tags, right? That's kind of been standard practice, but it's now taking that Avery Dennison tag that you have, attaching it to an NFT, and all of a sudden, voila, this whole world explodes and comes together, and that's the enablement of NFT, right?
Yeah. And just to add, that has a whole
Deep-
angle that
deep
will be a
product
separate
engagement.
conversation on sustainability as well, I think, to really kind of, be transparent about.
Claire, are we getting the hook? What are we doing over here?
It's just such a vibrant, fabulous conversation. Something I love so much about these panel groups is the people who come together, and the conversations that you're having and the energy between you all. It is such a reminder of the time that we are in. And, you all had a point as well that everybody expects things to be perfect. We can see we still have technical issues, technical challenges. We find that some of the AR and the XR, it's not exactly where we want it to be. But I think that is what is so exciting about this time. That is what is so exciting about having all of you here today and talking about these topics. It's been wonderful. You have incredible, deep insights into the industry. It's such an amazing.
Can we leave a cliff note for everybody as a salutation? So
please.
So a quick one from me, and I want to pass it around, is that to couple off of what Jessica was saying when I asked the question or the prioritization of between investing in what's traditionally Web 2 strategies that are also very important and working versus testing out Web 3, what I heard from you is that this is the moment where you need to be doing something. You need to be understanding this technology. You need to be learning this technology and being aware of what the possibilities are for the future. It may not be our today, but it will be our tomorrow. So with that said, I really do appreciate both of you and how you're building the future interactivity, and for Jessica, building kind of how brands are ushered into this in a responsible way that is not, it's mitigating their risk, it's getting them comfortable, and it's really storytelling the process, because I think there really is a lot of value and quite frankly, business to be made from Web3 today, but definitely tomorrow. Right. So, with that said, it's important to really kind of get your hands dirty with it. So.
I love that concept, bringing things back to the real earth as well, that we're going to get our hands dirty. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I am so grateful for this amazing panel. You guys are wonderful. I'm sure everybody found it at least as informative as I did. So I look forward to future conversations and seeing you all again. Hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow at our in-person event at Virgin Hotels.
You know, it's an absolute
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here, Claire. Thank you. And, you know,
Oh, yeah.
just one message from me is that it's great fun being at the frontier of technology. You know, we're building something really, really exciting that's going to impact the future in a significant way. So it's just, you know, it's a pleasure for all of us, I think, being part of that movement.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you as well. I mean, I think, you know, in as much as I said earlier, I have sort of a foot in the old and a foot in the new. I really want to kind of help, you know, brands get excited about what's coming down the line, but not feel overwhelmed by it and feel like they need to, like, you know, ditch their old team and get a new team, but I'd like really prepare in a kind of planful, but, you know, vision centric way, because we're going to be doing nothing but creating amazing imaginative experiences moving forward. So very excited to be a part of this.
And it's a bye for now, Claire. I'll see everybody back at 3 o'clock, where we're going to be talking about virtual personalities, what's the future of social engagement, data, and our wallets. So it's not bye, it's bye for now, Claire, and I will see you in a couple of months.
Thank you so much.